Hey guys, welcome to Adaz Place. My name is Ada, and in this channel we give knowledge and tips in the midst of vibes. So in this video I'm going to be talking about how I got an IELTS band score of 8.0. So if you're trying to write this exam, or if you know someone that is preparing to write the IELTS exam, I think this video is going to help you. I'm going to share some tips and tricks on what I applied that can also help you to achieve a similar score or something even way above that. So if that's what you're interested in watching in this video, so stick around to the end, where I would also share some general tips on what you can do when you're in the middle of this exam and you find out that you're losing your way. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. In case you don't know what IELTS is, this is an English language exam. It's mostly asked from those that want to apply to a school abroad, or you want to relocate abroad. So say for instance, if you're already looking forward to applying to a university in any country, especially to countries that speak English, or even to countries that don't speak English but the language of instruction is in English, then most likely you would have to write the IELTS exam or any other English language exam. There are two different types of the IELTS exam. You have the general and the academic. So the general is for those that mostly want to relocate. Maybe they want to live abroad. They want to say, I don't know, work abroad. Maybe they're going for a family reunion. So if you're coming from a non-English speaking country to an English speaking country, most times they'll ask you for this at the embassy, or at the immigration point, because they need to be sure that you can be able to communicate in English language when you get to your destination country. However, the academic tests the academic one is mostly for those that want to study abroad. So if you're applying to university, most times they'll ask you to write the academic IELTS or maybe a TOEFL, but then you need to pass a particular threshold. Ask you to get a band score of 5.0 or 6.0, but that's like average. If you want to really boom, or you want to really bang bang, like 8.0 and thereabouts, then you can then yeah, it shows that you have a very good knowledge of English language and so on and so forth. So the IELTS exam is divided into 4 different parts. You have the reading, the listening, the writing, and the speaking. So basically, they test the 4 different domains of language learning. So it's important for you to keep in mind that when you're writing the IELTS exam, or when you're preparing for this exam, they not only test your ability to speak English or your ability to understand English, they also want to test your ability to obey instructions in English as well. So I feel like that's why some of their instructions are very unique, kind of. So if you don't read the instructions and understand it very well, it might lead to a failure in the exam. So say for instance, let's start with the reading part of the exam. The reading part is divided into different sections, right? They have like 3 sections if I remember correctly, and in each of these sections they give you a passage to read and then some questions based on the passage you already read. And most often the instruction would be for you to choose between true, false, or not available. Most times people find it very confusing, between false and not available, because something that is not stated is usually false and it's also not available, right? I know what I did then was that I just tried to put it in a box: A, B, and C. A is white, B is black, C is gray. You're not sure. So say for instance, in the passage you read, Obi is a boy. The question, Obi is a boy. True, A. You choose true. But then again, you now have in the passage, Obi is a boy. Then in the question, you see Obi is a girl. That is false, of course. So you choose false, B. And then for the other part, maybe in the passage you see Obi is a boy. And then in the question, you see Obi went to church. In the question in the passage, Obi never went to church. You didn't read that Obi went to church or something like that. There's no point putting false. You just say not given, because there is no way for you to find out if Obi went to church or if the writer was trying to send Obi to church. I'm just trying to use this very simple example so that you can really understand it. I think that the illustration I'm giving right now is very simple. I just wanted to really understand the difference between false and not given. But then again, in the passages, like in the exam, the passages they give you are usually not this simple. They're usually scientific or something like that. For the reading part of this exam, I would really advise that you don't scheme or scam or try to guess the answers, because sometimes you can't really find this answer if you don't read it properly, if you don't read the passage properly. So what I did when I wrote my own exam then was that I first of all went to the questions. I read the questions. It gave me a little bit of an understanding of what the passage was going to be about, and then I kind of put my mind in that space. And then after reading the question, I now read the instruction so that I could really understand this instruction, because sometimes you might be told to choose one word or choose two words, and if you choose more than that, you begin to fail the exam. Yeah, so afterwards I now read the passage. I'm reading the passage. I try to take my time to read the passage, because the exam is very time conscious. You need to be really, really fast. You also don't want to be too fast such that you don't get the message of the story or the message of in the passage, but you also don't want to be too slow such that you waste so much time contemplating or maybe pondering on this particular passage, what it's trying to understand. So it's very, very important for you to have like a very clear mind before you go into the exam. You don't have to be afraid. It's an exam. You don't have to be afraid of it, because if you are afraid of it, then it's the beginning of you being very nervous, and if you're being nervous, you'll not be comfortable writing the exam. So yeah, you just have to relax, calm down, and try to read the passages and understand it very well. And while you're reading the passages, sometimes for some people it's easy for them to make markings on it, especially if you're writing a paper-based exam. It's always easier if you're actually writing a paper-based exam, because that way you can easily mark some key points or maybe some things that you think would be asked, or maybe it will help you or guide you through answering the questions. That's it for the reading part. And just a way to summarize, I would say you should read the instructions very well, read the questions first, read the passages, like read it very, very well. Make sure you're reading in between the lines, and when you're answering questions, don't assume. Say it as it is. It's either it's true, it's false, or it's not given. Don't assume what the writer would have written or what the writer is trying to talk about. It's not your job to do that. And then if it's possible, if you can, make markings and make jottings or whatever by the side of your paper, you're allowed to do so that it can help you when you're answering your questions. So the listening part, it has like different sections, and the first part is usually simpler, because the recorder or the person that is speaking, the speaker, is usually a little bit slow, and you can really understand what it is they're saying. But then when you get to the second part of the listening section, it becomes a little bit faster, so you have to be fast enough. You just have to be very, very fast to get. So for the listening part, I would advise you go in the same pace with the speakers or the people that are presenting the speech, because most times it will either be like an interview or someone is calling somebody, or something like that, and then there are questions you need to answer. Normally they'll give you some time to go through the questions before they begin what it is you have to listen to in order to answer the question. So just take your time with it. Sure you don't have any distractions, because most times they don't even repeat it. They usually say it just once, and that's it. But then again, sometimes in some of the listening parts, you might be given a name. So say for instance somebody is calling someone, and the speaker is trying to say his or her name, and they have to now spell it. Most times the speaker, or like the first speaker that's actually giving the name, might not be the one spelling it. The person that is receiving this message might be the one. You have to also be fast enough and sharp enough to know that when this person is spelling it, you have to write the spellings down at the same time, because some of these words or names are not things that you're used to or we are used to, or they might just be typical English names that you might not really know how to spell. So it's always good for you to write it down as it's pronounced, but if they actually spelt it, write the spelling at the same time, or maybe you can use the spelling to even cross-check what you've also written. Something very important for the listening part, and even generally for the whole exam, is to pay attention to lexis and structure. So say for instance, I might just give a list of words. For example, in this passage about bicycles, the speaker was saying that in this website they had things like bicycle parts, helmets, and so on and so forth, whereas in the question what was written there was bicycle accessories. So if you don't know what accessory is, you might not really know that they were talking about the helmet and all the other things, that was mentioned before. So, but if you know what this is, you already know, okay, yes, so this was what they're actually talking about. So you need to really pay attention to lexemes and structures. They might not say words the way they are. They might use synonyms, they might use antonyms, and things like that. So you really need to be very, very careful about that. And now to the writing part. Now, the writing part is usually the part where a lot of people lose marks because it's very subjective. You get it? So they give you maybe a graph or a diagram and tell you to describe it in so and so amount of words or so and so number of words. Please pay attention to this. Always write the amount of words. Try not to write, like, don't write below. It's better you write above, but not way above it. In the writing part, you have two sessions, the first session and the second session. The first session is really 150 words. They give you a graph and tell you to write an essay or maybe something about it in 150 words. Try as much as possible to write at least 150. Just try as much as possible to write at least 150. If you write below that, then it's easy for you to lose marks there. But then if you write above that, just don't write way above that. Don't write 700 when you're supposed to write 150, or don't write 300 when you're supposed to write 150. Try to keep it simple, maybe 200. Most times once you see this diagram and you don't know how to start, it's really easier for you to begin with a description. For me, what I did then was that when I saw the graph, I just started with describing. This graph shows so and so, x axis shows this, y axis shows this. By the time you're done describing this graph, you already have a good number of words. Please, again, try not to give an information that is not on the graph. Don't say something that you think should be on the graph but it's not there. That's not what the question is about. You're supposed to talk about what is on the paper, just what is there. Don't give them something that you think the writer should have written, or think something that you think the graph should have represented. Or no, just work on what is there. Work on what is there. Then the second part of the writing exam is usually 250 words for you to write, and it has more marks. It's even much more subjective because usually they give you a statement and then you have to talk about it in your own way. Or if you don't believe in this, talk about why you don't believe this. Really, in the writing part, it's always good for you to make use of connectives. By connectives, I mean like sentences that help you link words and phrases together to produce a more beautiful speech or a more beautiful writing. So say for instance, you have the conjunctives like and, so, moreover, and things like that. Try not to use the very common ones like and, so. You can use some things to show comparison, like nearly. Try to make use of this connect. Like, it even makes your speech very beautiful, and it makes your writing very beautiful and appear like a native speakers. Of this exam is the speaking interview. This, you either have it at the beginning of the exam or at the end of the exam. For me, I had mine at the beginning of the exam, so it kind of put me in the mood of what I was going to expect when I sat for the other part of the exam. So usually I would advise that, of course, you should be very relaxed, because if you're relaxed, it helps you a lot, with your articulation, with how you think and all of that. Normally they'll ask you to introduce yourself. Try as much as possible not to give like one word replies. Don't just say, okay, my name is Ada, and then that's it. No, most times they'll ask you some very simple questions, but try not to make your answer so simple. Personally, I think that when you're in the speaking exam, try to flow with the the interviewer. Try to make it look like a gist, but then a very formal gist. I wouldn't say informal gist, so that you don't begin to lose track and begin to use some words you're not supposed to use and stuff like that. But I would really say you should try to flow. Try to have that connection with the person. That way it even makes ideas pop in your head. And if they ask you questions that you don't typically have an answer to based on personal experiences or anything like that, you can just cook up something like very quickly. The most important thing for you is that you're speaking. They don't want to verify if the question, if your answer is real or not, if it happened real life or not. They just want to hear you speak English. They just want to hear how you construct your sentences, and things like that, how you articulate words. Let me put it that way. Yeah, that's what they want to know. They asked me what was my favorite topic in my math class in school, and I was like, what? So as a sharp girl would I be, I think of something really fast. And what came into my head then was board mass. I was like, okay, yeah. So I thought that my favorite topic then was, about board mass, bracket, order division, multiplication, addition, and subtraction. And the guy was looking at me like, mm-hmm. I know I to give extra information. I even told him that now right now the board mass actually helped me, in life, how I try to like that. It does not help me in life. Things go step by step. You don't just start from the beginning and jump to the end. You have to go through the processes, just like you have division first, then multiplication, then addition, then subtraction. You get, so you don't have to like jump. And he was so impressed, and I was like, mm-hmm. So yeah, that's just it. And then they also asked me if I liked going out in the rain, or what I felt about being in the rain generally. If I had plans, and it's there raining, if I'll still go on with my plans. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll still go on with my plans. I believe that I have things that can protect me from the rain, umbrella, raincoats, things like that I can actually use to go out in the rain. So if I have something really important, I wouldn't want to stop my plans because of something natural happening as rain falling. You get, so it was just a conversation. I tried to give like very simple answers, but not too simple, and also very relatable. They just want you to keep, talking and expressing yourself, just to be yourself generally. Yeah. And then for the general tip, for this IELTS exam, I would recommend that you practice a lot. Practice, go online, look for mock exams, look for practice questions and answers, look for all these things, and keep practicing, because I believe the more you practice this, the more acclimatized you are to the exam and what is required of you, and the more you begin to work with this, the time frame as well, because exam is timed, so you need to be very fast, especially with the writing and the reading part. You need to be very fast with it. Then as you practice, if there are some words you come across that you've not heard before, try to find out the meanings of these words and try to inculcate them in your speech. Like, try to put them in your daily speech, and because that way it makes it more natural, and it makes it easy for you to remember when you want to apply it in your speech or your writing test. Or also practice your reading. I think you should also expose yourself to some articles, some professionally written articles, because they won't bring up a blog post for a passage. It's usually something very scientific, so like facts, kind of. Yeah, it's usually facts. So you can start exposing yourself to literature articles like this. That's where you have knowledge of what is happening in the scientific world. Let me put it that way. You have more knowledge of what's happening, and you can also learn some new words that if you come across in the exam, it doesn't appear too new to you or too foreign to you. Your listening and speaking aren't very great right now. You can also start exposing yourself to movies and audiobooks. You can, when you're watching the movies, you can try to turn off the subtitle and try to listen to them. I recommend you watch English movies, because the exam is British. It's a British exam, so it also gives you more exposure to the way the pronunciation is, the way they construct their sentences, the way their words are said or are pronounced, and things like that. I also try to, as I said, turn off the subtitles, and yeah, try to practice your listening. And for the speech, I would say that when you're speaking, try as much as possible not to be too slow or too fast. Try to work with the same pace as the interviewer or an interview. Just make sure you're very comfortable, and if you're not speaking too fast, it also helps you think. It also helps you like really think before you give some answers. So if you're maybe in the middle of the exam, especially in the listening part, and you kind of lose your way, put yourself back on track. I recommend you use names, numbers, words to keep yourself back on track. And if you've already lost something, don't bother going back to look for it. Continue with the other question so you don't lose both ways. Once again, is for the speaking and the writing part. If you don't know what else to write, you can use some illustrations, you can use some examples, some personal experiences. That way, it gives you more context on things to write, and it also helps to make the passage or your speech more relatable. I don't know if that makes sense to you. Remember that in the listening part, instead of just writing the answers because and trying, trying to cross check with the questions and the options and all that, because you might not have the time to do that, remember to just write the answers by the side, and later you go through the options and find out if the answers you wrote on the side is also on the option, and then you choose it as the correct answer. And the reading part, remember not to skim or scam. Take your time to read the passages, try to understand it, because if you just skim, scam, and try to go through it without really understanding it, you end up wasting time, and you probably wouldn't do so well in the exam. So that's it for this video. I hope you like it. If you do, please give it a thumbs up. Write in the comment section what your experience was, if you've already written this exam, or if you're trying to write this exam and there's something that I did not mention or something you would want me to talk about. Also put it in the comment section, and I'll try as much as possible to answer your question. You can also check out other videos I have in the channel, and if you do like my channel, please consider subscribing. It's free of charge. You can join the family. Yeah, so that's it for this video, and I'll see you in my next video. Thank you.